What's going on, guys, and welcome to today's video. And today we are hopefully going to make this gray 04 Jeep. We don't have a cool name for it like we did with Hi-Ho Silver, but now that Hi-Ho Silver is officially gone, I kind of want to be able to drive this thing. And you may go, well, why aren't you driving it? And if I mentioned in that last kind of update video, this thing is dumping oil out of the back of the oil pan bell housing area. So we're hopefully gonna go into the shop, take care of that today. I've got a oil pan gasket and a rear main seal. Now I'm gonna try and show the best I can. I don't know, the angle's gonna be kind of hard, but we'll talk through it. I'll kind of explain what I'm doing. We use glue, which is kind of interesting repair on a oil leak. So we're gonna have some spray glue out. It's gonna be arts and crafts here with the Jeep today. So like I said, we'll get this thing into the shop, up in the air, hopefully get it leaking a lot less. Now, if you guys know 4 liters, you know they're always gonna leak. They mark their territory. That's a Jeep thing, Wrangler thing, whatever thing, they mark their territory. So you can never make a 4-liter stop leaking, but you can maybe slow it down enough where it's not like smoking because it's burning off the exhaust, and that is what we're going for today. This thing, like I said, right at the back bottom of the bell housing area, it is almost kind of running oil out of it. The exhaust crossover pipe is right there, and it is dripping right onto the exhaust. When you're sitting at a stoplight, it's kind of like rolling smoke. It doesn't look very cool when you're in your 04 Jeep Grand Cherokee and it's smoking at a stoplight. So enough talking, let's get in the shop, let's get this thing up in the air and hopefully get some gaskets in this thing. All right, guys, so we've got the starter out of the way and we are taking the last oil pan bolts down. Now, I've already got the rear inspection plate that covers up the torque converter bolts removed, but once you get the pan bolts out, you can get the pan knocked off and the old gasket material out of there. Now, I am also doing a rear main seal, so I'm going to need to pull the rear bearing cap off of this motor, which means I need to pull the girdle plate off of those main bearings. You can see that girdle plate runs just in a long strip of metal there connected to all of the main bearings. So we are going to need to get all of those unbolted so we can get that girdle plate off. And here you can see me finally getting those nuts off for that girdle reinforcement plate. Now, the 4-liter has a 2-piece rear main seal that is on the very back bearing cap, obviously. So once you get the girdle plate down, you can get it set aside, and then you are going to need to get the very rear main bearing cap bolts removed, and then you can kind of take the bearing caps or the bearing bolts and slowly kind of work those back and forth on that main cap to get it moved or removed so you can get to the rear main seal. Here you can see me working that rear bearing cap back and forth. Now, the rear main seal is, again, going to be half in the bearing cap, and then the other half is going to be up in the top of the block. So I like to take a pick, a screwdriver, something so you can shove the other half circle of that rear main seal out of the motor. And then that rear main seal is different on the front and back side, so you're going to want to make sure you've got it the same direction you took the old seal out. Put some engine lubricant on there and then slip that seal back into the back. Yeah, I know I don't really have a good camera angle where we can see that, but once you get the other seal into that main bearing cap, you can get the rear cap back on, and those rear bearing caps are going to torque to 80 foot-pounds. Now, one thing is kind of good to throw a little bit of engine assembly lube on that bearing surface before you throw the bearing cap on and tighten that down. Now, once you've got that on, you'll be able to throw your girdle, bearing, reinforcement, main cap, bracket back on. Now, these do have a torque spec, but honestly, it is not terribly torque critical like the main bearing bolts. So I just got them all on and then just tightened them up with my Milwaukee impact. Now, the next part is pretty important because you're going to want to clean off the engine block oil pan mating surface as good as you can, because this is really critical to make sure you don't have a bunch of dirt and debris sitting on that mating surface for that fresh gasket. Make sure you've got any RTV cleaned out of kind of those corner joints there at the front and the back of the engine block. And then here you can see me putting a little bit of 3-bond or RTV at those rear corner joints. And then I'm also putting some at the front before we get ready for the oil pan gasket. Now, here you can see me using the spray trim adhesive. This is, again, headliner glue, and I am spraying a decent coating on all of those mating surfaces. So the whole gasket surface, I am spraying that 3M Super Spray trim adhesive on, and again, a similar coating on the corresponding oil pan gasket. Once you let those tack up, give them a few minutes to tack up so they get sticky and tacky, and then you're going to be able to set that oil pan gasket up into the motor and get everything lined up. Now, this is super critical. If you don't have those bolt holes lined up, a 4-liter will fight you really badly on getting the pan back on. So spend a lot of time here making sure the oil pan is as perfectly lined up, or the oil pan gasket, I should say. Every single bolt hole is lined up as perfectly as possible. You're also going to want to make sure the oil pan gasket is in the groove in the back of the motor and fully set there in the front. And then last but not least, you're also going to want to throw a little bit more RTV at those corner joints before you throw this pan back on. And then obviously you just throw the bolts back in, the starter back in, and that bell housing cover inspection plate.
Well guys, it was kind of hard to film under the Jeep at the weird angle, but at least I kind of talked you through my process on a 4-liter oil pan gasket. Now, that is the only oil pan gasket that I use glue to glue the gasket onto the engine block before I put the pan on. Everything else, I normally have the gasket on the pan, put the pan up into place. But a 4-liter is so outrageously long, and then there is grooves at the front and the back where that gasket needs to kind of perfectly sit. So using that spray trim adhesive, headliner glue, whatever you want to call it, spraying a decent coat on the actual gasket and then spraying a coat on the oil pan mating surface, letting those kind of tack up, you can basically glue that thing into place and it stays there perfectly, so you can get all the bolt holes lined up. Also, don't forget some RTV at the corners before you put the gasket on, and I put some on the pan before I put the pan up there. It just kind of makes sure everything is going to hopefully seal as good as it can. Now, yes, this is now 99% better, good, whatever. 4-liters just are inherently leaky. I don't know if it's just the dumb 2-piece rear main seal or whatever, but they always seem to be a little bit greasy at the back of the motor. But this was previously dumping oil, pouring all over the exhaust, undrivable. It was smoking. It's now not doing that. So it's drivable now. It's a normal leaky 4-liter instead of a broken, very, very leaky 4-liter. So guys, I don't know. That's kind of one of the few things that was preventing me from driving this daily. And now that I kind of need to drive it daily, or want to drive it daily, since Hi-Ho Silver is gone. So I don't know, one of the things knocked off the list here. I am hopefully going to, or I am planning on showing you guys my paint correction. You know, since I'm a pro at doing paint correction work, since I did it one time with a Harbor Freight buffer on the Silver Jeep, I feel like I am very qualified to show you guys my method. Now, it might be a how not to do paint correction video, but I don't know. The Silver Jeep looked pretty decent when I was done. This thing also has some pretty decent scratches on it. I don't know if any of them are going to show. Yeah, there you can see. Again, these aren't through the paint. These are just in the paint. I don't know. So we'll hopefully be able to do my custom professional paint correction on this thing, and then we need to fix these nasty hazy headlights, and this thing will basically look like a brand new 2004 Laredo with a little lift and some tires. So that's what's coming up with this thing. I do have some TRX content. Hopefully you TRX guys have not left me for dead. So yes, we've got some TRX content coming up. Not with my TRX, of course, because mine's stuck in storage, or not stuck, but that's where it's living. But we will do some TRX content. I think that will be the next video out. So that's what we're doing, and I'll bring you guys along. And guys, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.